China's National People's Congress is done and dusted for another 12 months, concluding with a remarkably sober assessment of the prospects for the year ahead from Premier Wen Jiabao. He warned of the possibility of the world economy slipping back into recession. But some in the Obama administration saw Mr Wen's message differently, as another shot in the escalating war of words between Washington and Beijing over the US argument that China's currency is being kept artificially low, giving its exporters an unfair advantage. For its part, China's accusing the United States and Europe of trying to use exchange rate policy to promote protectionism, raising the spectre of a trade war. Helen Brown reports.
It's shaping up to be one of the toughest battles on the world economic stage. China is bristling at suggestions the value of its currency is too low, but there's a growing number that disagree.
The opinion of the IMF from this point of view is still that the renminbi is very much undervalued.
The International Monetary Fund's assessment is the latest on a policy that seemed to give China an edge in world trade.
What it does is it adds a lot of pressure on China, and it strengthens the arguments of those within the US, Europe and elsewhere that China needs to adjust the currency. So I think it just generally raises the temperature of something that was getting hotter anyway.
In 2008, China put a peg on the value of its currency, putting the renminbi or the yuan at a set level against the American dollar. It's a policy that makes its products cheaper to sell overseas and has helped shield export industries from the worst of the global downturn. China's leaders have not been happy about the international criticism.
There is indeed a phenomenon that the exchange rate is sometimes politicised. We have seen this in the global economy many times. We disapprove of this, and it does not help solve problems.
Europe and the United States have been the harshest critics. In the US, China's currency is seen as a barrier to increasing its own exports and therefore much-needed jobs. A House hearing has now been scheduled over the contentious issue, and 130 members of Congress are moving to have China labelled a currency manipulator.
I think right now we're having very good, constructive conversations between Beijing and DC, and we'll see, where the two countries ultimately align. But we have a very, very robust economic relationship between DC and China, and for that reason, we're going to find a way through this.
What the Obama administration, like Bush before it, is trying to do is to be seen domestically to talk tough with China on the economy, but behind closed doors to manage the relationship.
The congressional bipartisan letter calls for tougher action, including putting tariffs on imports if China fails to let its currency appreciate. A day earlier, China's premier made it very clear how he felt about such moves.
We oppose certain countries engaging in mutual finger-pointing or taking strong measures to force other nations to appreciate their currencies.
The official line is that the currency will stay relatively stable, but stronger growth figures for February gives China's government room to make a case to their own people.
If exports do not come back, the domestic resistance to revaluation will be pretty significant.
The head of China's central bank has also hinted at a move.
If we want to retreat from the unconventional economic policies and return to the conventional ones, we need to be very cautious in choosing the right timing. This includes the renminbi exchange rates policy.
China's been standing firm in the face of some significant pressure from both developed and developing economies. And now that it seems there will be change in the special monetary policy, the question is by how much and when.
I think initially it will be very, very limited, but I tend to think if we're looking at the whole year this year, it's quite possible to move by something like between 3–5%. Then the pace could pick up next year, especially if the global economy really start to move upward.
It's very unclear because there are so many moving parts, including how the Chinese economy responds to a slowdown in the pace of investment growth, which is something they're very concerned about, and also how the U.S. responds. What are the political implications?
In fact, all eyes continue to be on the country that's setting the pace for economic recovery. Its leaders are still worried about weaknesses in global economies and publicly raise the possibility of a double-dip recession. Others think the economic signs for what still remains the world's biggest economy are positive.
All of the indications are that we're on the road to recovery. Not a rapid recovery, not necessarily a strong recovery, but a recovery that will move apace through 2010, and then I think 2011 is a very good year.
The kind of recovery that many hope China will come on board too.